And thanks everyone for being here to my presentation. And my name is Faye, and I'm a fourth-year PhD student from Purdue Agribusiness. And this paper I will present today will estimate or investigate the state-level regulation called unit pricing regulation and its effect on retailers' assortment strategies. So we will take the U.S. yogurt market as an example, and this work is done by me and my advisor, Mei-Ling Ma. As we all know, the retail stores are always incentivized to strategically obfuscate their consumers by making direct price comparison more difficult so that the stores can soften the price competition and achieve higher markups. So to protect consumers, regulation called unit pricing regulation was introduced in some states in the US. The main idea is that in addition to provide the product price, the stores follow the regulation has to provide the unit price for the product too, so that the consumers can compare the products across different brands, different flavors, different package sizes more easily, and they can make more informed purchase decision. So since the introduction of UPR in some states in the US, there are tons of studies examining the UPR impacts on consumer side. For example, many et al. Show that consumers are motivated to use unit price, and this motivation is correlated with their awareness of quantity surcharges. However, we find there is much less attention that has been paid to the other players in the market, which is retail store. So we are curious about how retail stores will react to this regulation in terms of their non-price strategies. So let me simply explain our economic intuition here. So if a store is located in a state that follows the UPR, then it has to offer a piece of additional price information, which is the unit price. So the price competition is intensified, and the retail store facing this intensified price competition has the incentive to soften the price competition. They can either increase the product varieties to draw consumers' attention away from price comparison to attribute comparison. And they can also further distinguish their products by attributes, but without necessarily changing their the number of products in their portfolio. So the UPR effect on the store's product portfolio is ambiguous and complicated, and calls for a comprehensive empirical analysis by using the product level data set. So this brings our research questions. Our main research question is to investigate how UPR affects the retail store's product assortment. And in this study, specifically, we will focus on two retail channels, which are grocery stores and mass merchandisers separately. So this is because these two retail channels target different consumer groups, and they are featured by different assortment and pricing strategies. So it is likely that they will respond to this state-level regulation differently. And second, we will investigate how UPR impacts the store's pricing strategies. And based on the store's adjustment or their reactions to UPR in terms of their pricing and product assortment, finally, we will explore how UPR impacts the consumer welfare. Okay, let me introduce our identification strategy. So with the ORS framework, even if we control for a large number of control variables that may affect the regulation status and the store's product assortment, and even if we can include a lot of fixed effects, we still face a potential endogeneity problem because this state-level regulation, unit pricing regulation, is not assigned randomly at the state level. So to solve this problem to the best we can, we follow the framework of Dubay, Lester, and Rag. So the basic idea is that instead of looking at all the stores located in regulated and unregulated states, we only look at the stores located along the border, along the state border lines. So the assumption is that the regulated and unregulated stores in the continuous border counties only differ in whether they have to follow the UPR or not. So let me show you a map, which is more clear here. So you can see that we colored the regulated counties in the regulated states by orange, and the counties without regulation are colored by blue. So you can see that this county belongs to Oregon, and Oregon has the UPR in effect. So this orange county will be paired for 3 times because it has 3 bordered unregulated counties. Okay, now next we construct 2 sets of outcome variables. The first set of outcome variables measures the number of products provided in a store, including the number of UPCs, number of brands, number of package sizes, and the number of varieties. And the second outcome variable here measures the level of differentiation among brands within a store. So following Sweetening's study, we construct the variety uniqueness index, which ranges from 0 to 100. And the larger the index is, the more distinctive attributes of products in different brands have within a store. So this is our econometric model. On the left-hand side is our outcome variables, the first and second sets of variables in store J, in retail chain R, in county M, and in month T. So remember that a regulated county may be paired for multiple times because they have multiple unregulated counties counterparts. So we include K here, so which refers to the instances of the store entering the model to solve some mechanical correlation in the error term. And the reg dummy here refers to whether the regulation is in effect in this state or not. So if store J in the state with the mandatory UPR, then the dummy equals 1. And we also include a dummy variable called peer. So let me introduce it. So peer equals 1 if store J has peer chain store located in the UPR-free border counties. So why we consider to include this variable? This is mainly because from prior studies, we can find that the chain level management may weaken the local effects on the store's product offerings and pricing. So by including the peer dummy and the reg peer interaction term, we are able to measure the differential impacts of UPR on stores with and without UPR-free peers. So here, beta 1 refers to the UPR effect on a store without UPR-free peers, whereas the beta 1 plus beta 3 refers to the UPR effect on a store with UPR-free peers. And this model only applies to grocery stores because in our sample, all the mass merchandisers have UPR-free peers, creating no variation in peer dummy. So we will just ignore peer and its interaction term for mass merchandisers. And we also include BP here, which is the indicator of the cross-border county pair. And X refers to some store level and county level characteristics. And we also include the retail chain fixed effect, which is delta R, and year and quarter fixed effect, which is delta phi T, and also county specific monthly trend, which is pi MT. And we also cluster our errors at the state level and the county pair level. Okay, we use 3 major data sets in the study. The first one include the information about the you can see in the map. So the states colored by orange has the mandatory UPR, but we only choose 5 of them because they are bordered with the unregulated states. So the 5 states are Oregon, New York, New Jersey, Maryland, and New Hampshire. I'm sorry, it's a little bit small, but I just type all the states' name here. And we also focused on the 4 states that without UPR, but they are bordered with the states with UPR, which are Idaho, Maine, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. And the second data set we use is the Nielsen retail scanner data. And in this study, we specifically focused on yogurt products. This is mainly because yogurt is one of the most popular products consumed in the US, and they are highly differentiated and they have many attributes so that the stores can use various ways to conduct product differentiation. So we aggregate the product level weekly volumes and sales from 2006 to 2016 to the store month level to identify the UPR effects on the store level. And we augment this data set by including the county level economic and demographic information. Okay, so this is our first result. So this table shows the UPR effects on the store's product offerings. So as we can see in the upper panel, the grocery stores without UPR-free peers tends to offer 5 more brands, 1 more package size, and 5 more varieties, and their products, their brands in the stores are more differentiated. But if we add this 2 rows up, we will see that the grocery stores with UPR-free peers do not significantly change their product offerings in terms of the brands, package, and varieties. And the lower panel, in contrast, the lower panel shows that the regulated mass merchandisers tends to use a different way to respond to UPR by just removing UPCs, removing brands, packages, and varieties, and the remaining products are more differentiated. To sum up, these 2 retail channels all respond to the UPR, to the regulation significantly, but they use different ways. And using the similar model and controlling for the store level product assortment, we are now estimating the UPR effects on the store's product prices. So as we can see here, the grocery stores without UPR-free peers charge 16% higher than their unregulated counterparts, whereas the grocery stores with UPR-free peers do not charge significantly different prices so as to mass merchandisers. And given these 2 results, we are now ready to quantify the UPR welfare impacts. We set up several counterfactual scenarios here for mass merchandisers and grocery stores without UPR-free peers separately because they take different strategies. So for in general, in all the scenarios, we find surprisingly negative effects on consumer welfare. So let me take grocery stores without UPR-free peers as an example. So this type of store, they tend to add more brands, but they charge higher prices, which have the opposite effects on the consumer welfare. But as we show here, each consumer purchasing yogurt products at grocery stores will lose 45 cents per year. So, and this result is robust across different scenarios. Okay, to conclude, in this study, we use Nielsen scanner data to identify the UPR effects on the store's product offerings, and we find that different retail channels respond to this local level regulation differently. And specifically speaking, grocery stores without UPR-free peers tends to offer more brands with higher prices, whereas mass merchandisers offer fewer products without changing their prices. And given these results, we quantify the UPR welfare impacts on consumer welfare, and we find a surprisingly negative impacts on consumers. So the message is that when a regulation is designed or implemented, it is always important to consider how the retail stores respond to such a regulation in terms of their non-price strategies. Okay, that's all for my presentation. Thank you. So any questions or comments? Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting presentation. There are a couple questions, but the presentation itself. The qualitative result. First of all, is the data in force in the state level? My question is, when it comes to the unregulated state, in the individual stores, some of the stores voluntarily put the unit price, or some are not.
Yeah.
Is it true? I mean, some of them may possibly put the unit price voluntarily, even in the unregulated stores, but I don't think this data has those specific information.
You are right. Yeah. So for the Nielsen data set, we don't have any information about the unit price, or whether they provide unit price or not. We only have the information at the state level. But actually, in our study, we are not estimating the average treatment effect, which means that we face a potential contamination because some stores in the unregulated states can also offer unit price if they like. So our analysis is more like the intent to trade. So the intensity of offering the unit price is higher in the regulated states compared to unregulated states. So our estimates should be more conservative in that way.
Is the regulation only for brick and mortar, like offline stores, or is it also for online stores?
Yeah, so for this question, at least in the Nielsen data I use here, they do not include the online stores. So we only have the samples for offline stores. So I'm not totally sure, but we can try it in the future to see. Yeah.
The last question is, it is not presented here, but based on your document, there's another case of the grocery store with UPC free tiers.
Yeah.
But based on the result that I've seen, the stores in the regulated state follow. I mean, they do not adjust to the regulation, which means they follow categories of the tiers. But it's about personal detail question. Is it possible to be opposite, like stores in the regulated state may adjust to the regulations and the peer store follow it? Is it possible, or is there any logic behind those reactions to the regulations?
Yeah. So so our idea of like including the peer store, the stores in our analysis is more like in the prior studies, we find that the chain level management may weaken some the effects of some local regulations. So I think maybe in the future we can look at if the peer stores can change their product, change their behaviors in the product in the unit price tax offering. But I think in that way we should do some survey instead of just using the Nielsen scanner data, or just some very high level state level information about the unit price. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. Was it a possibility to look for, like, say, similar states that are not like neighbors to the ones that were introducing unit price? Because I could imagine that there are spillover effects of this unit price introduction to the neighboring states, and this is even more severe the smaller the state is, of course. So, was it possible, or is it a possibility to just like look for states that are quite similar to one using unit pricing, but like further away from the one?
So you mean like even if now we are looking at the states that are bordered together, so how can they further distinguish themselves? Or?
No, like say California is introducing unit pricing, and then you would use Arizona as a comparison that was not unit pricing county or state. Wasn't it possible to say, I don't know, we use Michigan instead, which might be quite similar, but does not have the risk of these spillover effects. Because you said your estimate should be quite conservative, right?
Yeah, right. So I think that's a good idea, but here why we use the border counties is because we assume that the stores located along the border lines are more similar, and the only difference is like they follow UPR or not. So which allows us to say that the demand shocks and supply shocks are similar to these stores. But if we use if we just ignore the geographic proximity and we look at, for example, California with Michigan, then we have this endogeneity problem, and I don't know how to address it because the regulation was introduced in late 1970s. So we cannot use the BID estimator. So that's the best we can do to solve the problem here. Yeah. Thank you.
I would have another one.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Do you have some explanation for the decrease in the number of products offered by the mass
merchandisers? So I think let me show you the results here. So I think the main message here is that you can say that the regulated mass merchandisers, they reduce the number of products, but from the last column, we find that their remaining products are more differentiated compared to the unregulated mass merchandisers. So that comes back to our first slide, that the stores, even if they remove products, but the remaining ones are more differentiated. So if without the unit price tax, as a consumer, I cannot actually compare the products very easily, since they have highly differentiated attributes. So if there is a UPR, if there is a unit price tax, then I can easily compare these products. So I think this is the main idea behind why mass merchandisers try to remove, but they offer more different products in their portfolio.
I get the point, but what is puzzling to me is usually suppliers to retailers are competing for shelf space.
Oh yeah.
So actually, I would have expected that maybe the number of products increases or brands increase because the competition increases among the suppliers, and then say retailers can impose more market power on their suppliers. So that's what this problem is.
Oh yeah. Maybe in the future we can just look at the upstream structure to see if we can control for that. Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Hello, my name is Jin Ho from Purdue University, and then I'm going to present about the introduction and usefulness about the unique data set that I have. This is the project that I have started when I was back in Korea, and then with these two co-authors, one of the Sang-hyo is here, and then he took over this project there and is still leading the project with me after I came back to Purdue. So I hope this will be interesting, and I hope we could have an insightful discussion about this data stuff. So we were first motivated by two things to start to this project. First of all, a dramatic growth in e-commerce recently, and then the other one is the importance of providing a more accurate consumer price index based on higher frequency data. The first, recently, the online grocery shopping and even agriculture commodity in Korea has increased, especially over COVID period. but not only about the COVID period, because these days, like for the past 10 years, thankfully, I'm thankful to big data analytics, machine learning, or artificial intelligence help online grocery stores well manage their inventory management, forecasting their demand, etc. So for example, the Ocado Group, which is leading online grocery stores in United Kingdom, they introduced a grocery fulfillment center, which uses big data analytics and machine learning. So they successfully manage their freshness in inventory. They forecast demand very successfully, even for physically, like, robotic arms to picking up for better packaging stuff. So it is not only about the COVID, but still very increasing industry. At the same time, these days, a more accurate importance of the more accurate CPI based on the real-time data has been emphasized because there is usually at least 2-week lag from the reference month to the month of data release. So some of the previous studies try to overcome this lag issue by using online prices. They collect by using web scraping, because web scraping has some of the advantages. For example, since it is automated system to collect the data from the online grocery store, they can collect the data like daily basis, even hourly basis. But at the same time, it easily collect all registered products in online stores, very easily. So the data set collected by the web scraping is pretty close to the population data. So however, there is a limitation of using web scraping. We need a quantity data to develop consumer price index, but normally we cannot have an access to the quantity data from online grocery stores. So this is why the quantity data is important. When we generate a consumer price index, we normally weight prices based on the sales proportion across the different food categories. So US Bureau of Labor Statistics and Statistics Korea, they conduct regularly expenditure survey to get the weight across the different food categories. So still, like I said, for the online retailers, it is pointed out by USBLS or National Academies of Science and Engineering and Medicine in their recent publication of Modernizing the Consumer Price Index for 21st Centuries. They all point out that it is not available to get the quantity data or sales data from online retailers. So some of the existing studies, they try to circumvent this unavailability of the quantity data by using debit card transaction data or scanner data for the matched products as those in the online retailers of the market share. Also, or the other study suggests to conduct continuous expenditure survey with shorter period of time. But this may be helpful to get the quantity data for manufactured goods or durable goods, which means maybe the purchasing behavior between online and offline is not different because they are durable goods. But when it comes to food items or agricultural commodity items, due to freshness or perishability across the delivery, so maybe purchasing behavior between online and offline store different from maybe different. So in this study, we tried to collect a unique data set which represents a number of remaining stocks behind the online grocery stores, and then we can estimate the quantity sold by keeping track the changes in the number of remaining stocks over time. So the main objectives of this study is these four. We try to collect data which includes inventory or the number of remaining stock data from online grocery stores with a higher frequency at a product level. And then with those data, we try to examine detailed purchasing behavior in online retailing stores. We also try to develop like a preliminary price index based on the price and quantity estimated based on the data script. And then we also try to compare the new price index that we suggested with the existing price index. We have these two contributions of this study. First of all, we can provide data with a higher frequency at the product level for developing more accurate price index and inflation rate for food and agricultural commodity items. At the same time, we try to develop price index based on quantity data, actual quantity data we can scrape from the online grocery stores. So let me just briefly review the findings. First of all, price index for each item and aggregating those items, they follow pretty the current CPI pretty close, but with daily variations. At the time, the price index is different when we use the weight information for the current expenditure survey. So we just try to compare price index weighted by the quantity data based on scraping data and the current expenditure survey data. And for the purchasing behavior, on average, only 4% of the total number of registered products have been sold. And then online prices are higher than offline prices for onions and eggs. We'll talk about why we choose some of the products later in the presentation. And in supermarkets and fresh food delivery channel, they show higher prices than other channels such as online discount stores or TV home shopping channel online stores. And the market share of the top 10 purchased products, they usually cover over 80% of the total total sales. And then Saturday and Monday are days when consumers usually purchase products the most. So let me just briefly go over the techniques of the data collection and the processing. The web scraping, I think most of you heard of this, is a data collection technique that automates the extraction of information from online space. It is faster than traditional survey or a panel-based method, which enables us to collect data like shorter period of cycle, like daily basis or hourly basis. And then the online data is available ubiquitously, which means we can, once we set up the scraping program, we can just collect the data everywhere, which means, for example, buying a scanner data is pretty expensive, but it's not expensive unless it is not legally, permitted. And the text mining is also needed because this is the data from online space, not only for grocery stores, but also at the same time, social media, posting and everything. So we have to extract the detailed information that we need by using text mining strategy. For example, this line is an example of the title, organic grass-fed New York strip steak. This pack includes 10 steaks and then 10 ounce each. We have to extract each different information from the sentences. So we have to, we used recurrent neural networks based on deep learning process, and then specifically long short-term memory is used. We also applied the natural language processing for extracting weight information because each product has different way of describing the weights. For example, there's a promotion, buy one, get one, all of those things. That's why we need to use recurrent networks with based on the natural language processing. So here's the data information that we collect. We collect 4 main agricultural commodity in Korea, which is onion, garlic, potato, eggs, which is the main agricultural commodity that is usually our daily lives in Korea. And then at the same time, the price variation of these 4 items is huge. So like I said, this is a preliminary project with this most important 4 agricultural commodity. And if our project becomes successful, we're going to expand the item categories. So we scrap the data from 15 online retail websites, which covers 95% of the online purchases. So which is pretty much like a total market data. We collect product title with detailed information like characteristics, what kind of process each item go through, price, like I said, the number of remaining stocks and discount information, etc. So we scrap the data 8 times a day to track changes in the number of remaining stocks to estimate sales. So finally, we validate the data by comparing the revenue from the scrap data with the actual revenue from online retailers. The Sangyo and then CRAE is the government agency like ERS in the USDA. We ask these online retailers for their cooperation to provide their monthly revenue for us to compare our revenue from them. And it's pretty much close, like at least 85% is pretty close. So it is not perfect, but I think we can just follow the quantity information pretty well enough to use as a useful data. So here's the brief map. So this is scrapping part. This is the processing part. And after we have all the information like weight, price, finally we can get the price index by using Las Paris index for the trial. So here's the result. We are still collecting the data, but the data period that we used for this presentation is from November 2021 to April 2022. In total, almost 12 million products has been collected. the thing is, like I said, just only 4% of the total registered products were sold. So we just removed unsold product because of the market equilibrium, and then no one is interested in the products that has not been sold. And after that, still there's a misclassified items. The half of the remaining item is misclassified items, even though it is in the onion category. Sometimes it is not onion. Maybe sellers, they misclassify the item when they post the products on the website. So we just remove them. So finally, the data, number of products we use is 240,000 items. So here's the number of registered products across the different channels. So lots of different channels. Let me quickly. The open means open market, which is pretty close to eBay or Amazon, where sellers just directly post their items and to sell the items by themselves. At the same time, social means discount and social commerce, the platform, which is pretty much close to Groupon. Still, sellers, they just post their own items and sell it by themselves. Supermarkets. Food is the online food, fresh food grocery stores, which is close to Fresh Direct in New York area or Yummy Bazaar. Still, and then home means the TV home shopping. They still have online groceries online on the website after any of their item has been broadcasted. So supermarkets, food grocery stores, online grocery stores, and home shopping, they purchase the items from the wholesalers or producers, and then they sell it by themselves. They never allowed the sellers to post their items. So open markets and social commerce market, they do not have any market entering barrier. So they have the more registered products than the other the grocery stores. Onion, garlic, pretty much the same. And here's the weighted average price across the products, because even though onion or egg individual items have lots of products and each individual items have different quantities sold, we just weighted average price across the products, and then we present it by the packaging sizes. Consistent with our intuitions, the bigger the package sizes, the lower the unit price is. Much the same. And here's the comparison between online and offline price of the onion. Like I mentioned in the earlier period of presentation, online price for onion is higher, egg is the higher, but potato online price is the lower. We have not been able to why this happens, because so far we just focus on the collecting the data and then how to process the data to have a daily variations of the data. So we'll figure it out. And then when it comes to garlic data, because of the weight of the garlic in Korea is not pretty much standardized, we just remove them for the presentation, because they have this big basket of the garlic, and then they just, one basket, two basket, they do not count that based on the weight. That's why we remove the garlic. And then here's price index of the individual items. So the blue is the current standardized CPI, and then the red is our own CPI that we developed. It pretty much the trend between those two is pretty much similar. Onion, egg, even potato, but this data, since we have a daily basis information, this has the variations of the data, daily variations of the data. And then this is the aggregated price index across the three items. Like I said, garlic, the weight is not standardized. We just aggregated the onion, egg, and potato to develop our own aggregated index. Trend shows pretty much the same, but variation different. At the same time, the number, like I said, the magnitude in this case is pretty different. The reason that we think of is that the current CPI is based on the price data collected based on the sample items, maybe the couple of sample items, but we collect all the items, different brands, different products, everything. This is the range of the price collected from the online data, online grocery stores. Like I said, our data is pretty much like a population data. It shows large range, large range in prices. onion, egg, potato, they also have some of the outliers. And I think outliers based on different process, etc. But still, I think using the sample data may be biased because of these large the price variations. So this is the comparison in price indexes. So the orange line is the current standard CPI. The blue one is the CPI of hours, which means we use our quantity data that we scraped from the online grocery stores. The gray one, we still use the online price data, but weight information is based on the expenditure survey. So how the weight information based on grocery store, online grocery store, or expenditure survey differentiates the data. The current, if I use the current weight from the expenditure survey, it overestimates the price index. Maybe so that in this case, maybe the inflation rate of these items may be higher, or it's maybe biased because of the sampling strategy, or sampling strategy. So I think it's necessary for us to follow quantity data from online grocery stores if it is possible, and then which provides us more accurate CPI and inflation rate. Here's from now on, I'm going to briefly talk about the purchasing behavior. Like supermarkets and fresh food online store usually show the higher price than other discounted stores. Pretty much consistent with onion, potato, and then here's the market share of the top 10 purchase products. When we go to the grocery store website or even Amazon or everything, there's a limit of the monitor that we can see how many products on a single monitor. So in this case, top 10 products usually dominates the market. The top 10 products of the onion, on average, 80% of the total purchase. Potato is pretty much similar. And then this is the purchasing behavior over weekdays. Like I said, Monday and Saturday, the consumers, they do online shopping behavior on Saturday or Monday. Based on the time, usually, because there's other the report saying that on Monday morning in a specific time or Saturday night, consumers try to purchase the online grocery stores on that time. So now, based on this data, this is like I said, preliminary. We try to validate the data, the quality. Now we're trying to do some of these the research. For example, we try to develop new CPI with the scripted data. Also, we can try to conduct a research about the price forecasting or nowcasting with a daily basis data by using structural time series analysis, maybe possibly machine learning stuff. And then we also try to, because we have a price and quantity data, we also try to estimate price elasticity of demand in online grocery markets, and then we can compare that to the offline grocery markets. And then potential future research, maybe the FAA also gave me an idea, because in this case, offline grocery stores, I don't think it's regulated, even for in the same stores. For example, in the United States, even on the same Kroger stores, some of the product shows a unit price, or some of the other products do not show the unit price. Or we can apply yours to the online data at the product level or store level. So we also do that, also investigate the pricing strategy of grocery stores, for example, when it comes to the algorithmic pricing or lots of different pricing strategies. And then we also hope that we can do timely, well-managed impact study, because it's a daily basis data. And then we can collect the data daily basis, which is updated daily basis. So if there's anything happens, we can just quickly analysis the impact of that happening on the price based on this data scraping strategy. So here's the conclusions. Data script may be a useful source for developing a modernized CPI with a higher frequency, with lower cost, and then with the quantity data. If we successfully develop the complete CPI, and it can be used for policymakers in many official contexts, such as Social Security, SNAP, tax brackets for business and private citizens to adjust their wages, rents, or other payments. So real-time data provision also may be useful for market participants, such as consumers, retailers, or agricultural producers like farmers. So yeah, this is all I have for today. So if there's any question, feel free to ask me.
I think it's very new and also open. I have just some questions out of my curiosity. First, or what is the legal, potential legal problem with record for your sample? Are you free to do that? Do you get data or is that also?
It is pretty much similar to the United States. Recently, Korea Supreme Court, they also talk about the legality of web scraping. They said it is possible to, I mean, it is okay to scrape the data. I mean, it is totally legal to scrape the data if it is publicly available and if it's not used for profitable purposes, like business purposes. And then the thing is, I mean, 2 months ago, US Supreme Court also talk about, I mean, also pretty much the same thing, same conclusion about the legality of web scraping. But the thing is, in this case, quantity data is not normally, when it comes to a website, which does not display quantity data on the screen, but while I want to access the public access behind the website structure, it is allowed in Korea, but I'm not sure it is allowed in the United States. That's the legality issue about the collecting quantity data in the United States. So that's, yeah, that's the one that I am trying to be cautious. Yeah. Mhm. It depends. Yeah, because for us, it's fine. Just 8 times, like every 3 hours, scraping the data is not a problem. But maybe there will be huge traffic captured by the website owners. But so far, we do not have any report from them. So yeah. It's yeah, we have more store. We need more storage.
It's my personal experience. I know that sometimes one seller has several different online stores on different platforms, right? And then even when you try to capture the same inventory or like how many items left, so if it's sold on one platform the same or also the same in the other platform, even themselves, and then the risk that you overcount the sold. Have you thought about it?
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a very good point, because we have thought about it and we try to separate that as best as we can, but that could be maybe a potential problem across the states. But some of them, we can find that one single seller have one big storage information across the different multiple stores. We try to capture that, but some of the sellers also have individual independent remaining stocks in different websites. We try our best to do that, but like I said, there are huge amount of products and huge amount of sellers. So still, it is not perfect, but that's a good point. We still have to pursue managing that over counting or missing problem. Yep. Thank you. Yes, sir.
So you're scraping company websites, private company website.
It's a private. It's a grocery store website. Yeah, private.
From a private website, there's no firewall. That's that.
Oh, in the website code, there's no firewall, because that's why we try. Because there's usually the variable with the inventory number. Like I said, it is not displayed on the screen, but behind the website structure, website code, HTML code, there's lots of numbers, but there are numbers which represent the number of remaining stocks. So we try to experiment. Once we purchase, the number changes. And then still the website does not block us to scrap the data. That's why it is specifically considered. I mean, each different countries should be considered specifically. So like I said, in Korea, it is not illegal to script the data unless, like you said, the private website does not block or firewall the data from us.
You know, maybe they're counting the physical inventory online index style system rather than true absolute number of quantity of people. Do you have any way of testing the external validity of the assumption that you do that after you look at the
Yeah, that's why we try to do, because whenever we buy or purchasing items, we can just do like, you know, how many items we have. For example, 3 units of items, not just the single items. We just try to multiple items, 3 items, or adjusting 5 items. And then to see how that number, like a potential number that we think to be an inventory number, how it changes real time. And then if it changed the real time according to our purchasing units, we just finally determined that
external confirmation
mhm.
that matches up with an actual
Mm.
inventory of warehouse.
Oh, it's that's right. It should be changes in that numbers. It doesn't have to be the actual number of remaining stocks. So from the beginning of the scrapping, there's a baseline number. For example, it's 90 or 98, and then we can just track the changes of that numbers over time. So that's how we can do. And at the same time, for the validation, we ask retailers, the actual retailers, for their monthly revenue with the price and the actual quantity sales. And then we just compare our revenue to their revenue. And then it's pretty much like 85% at least matched between our the revenue and then their monthly revenue. That's how we can do our best to validate our quality of data. The thing is, like I said, still in the United States, it is okay to scrape the public data, but I'm not sure how Supreme Court defined the public data. If it is just the data displayed on the screen or behind the website structure. So that's some of them, because the bigger like a mass merchandiser like Walmart, Target, they don't have, unfortunately. They have more complicated website structure to hide the data. But for some of the online exclusively grocery stores, I found that number of the data, like inventory number, and then now I'm trying to experimenting in the same way, like I make a purchase, how the number changes. But some of the online grocery stores have them, but I'm not sure. Like I said, I try to be cautious to actually scrape the data until I am 100% sure it's legal. Yes, sir.
Sort of a basic question regarding the inventory data. I don't understand how you can get the quantity sold out of it. I mean, you track the number of inventory data, so it goes down to 4. How do you know what of retail, how much of it was retail of the stock and how much was purchased to other companies?
Oh, that's a very good question, because we also try to estimate that thing. If any seller restock, and then the inventory number increased and suddenly increased from 40 to maybe 500 at some point. In the case, we still have to estimate it. That's why we try to still record the changes in the data every 3 hours. And then based on the past purchasing behavior, we can adjust the number of the sales. But it is not perfect, but that's why we still have to track of the past consumers' purchasing behavior. That's why I have the purchasing behavior over weekdays or even in the morning or afternoon. That's what we try to do, decompose their purchasing behavior every single time, every single day, to estimate the sales data in the case for restocking or something unexpected thing happen. So it is just still estimation in that point, but we try to find a better way to tackle those issues. Yep. Yes, please.
What did we use the neural network for? I didn't really get that. And also, laser data related to
It is actually the technical issues that the thing is, I'm not fully enough to explain technical stuff because the Yongji, the second co-author, he's mostly dealing with this the technical stuff, neural networks and LSTM model. But I'm sorry, he's not here. So if you give me your contact, I will ask him this question and then keep you posted about the answers. Yep. Yeah, I will ask him, yeah, this question. Yeah, please share your contact after this, please. Yep. Yep. Yep, thank you so much for listening and questions and comments. Yep, thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the last presentation of our session. My name is Anne Gao, and I'm a PhD student at University of Bonn, Germany. And this is a collaboration with Octavian who's in American University, and Michelle Robb, professor at the University of Urbana-Champaign. And today we talk about the USDA announcement and the stock price of food sector company. So the motivation is, like my research interest is very much connected to USDA announcement and the effect of them. So I've read tons of paper in this field and the effect on commodity market. And in general literature show that there's significant impact of the USDA announcement on commodity markets, both in terms of price and volatility and so on. On the other hand, in macro and finance literature, we also have a lot of papers showing that there's significant impact of macro announcement on the stock price of companies traded, publicly traded stock market. The same person again. All right. So yeah, however, there's not many, if not to say none of the study looking at how the USDA report impacting the stock market, specifically the stock price of those companies in food sector. So who are they? When we talk about food sector company, we talk about those companies that, produce input for farms like machinery, technology, farm technology, and pesticide, fertilizer, and so on. And also on the other side is those farms that use the product, the agriculture product as their inputs, like biofuel, restaurant, retailers, and so. So there's very little discussion about the effect of the USDA report on the stock price of these companies, and this is the motivation of us for this study. Now, so you may think, okay, from the discussion and from what we have seen so far, agriculture is a part of the economy, but very small part. So as a whole, maybe the information in this USDA report specifically about agriculture production may not have a significant impact. They may not move the stock market as a whole. However, within a subsector of companies that related directly to agriculture, like I said, it should be sensitive to some extent to USDA, and how much is this effect, that is what we're interested in knowing. Again, because we looked at the literature and not much have been studied in this respect yet, so we ourselves had to come up with intuition, and based on microeconomic theory, we developed our hypothesis and theory to answer this question. So the first thing is, we know that the share price or the stock price of companies usually considered as the net present value of all expected cash flow in the future, discounted at a proper discount rate. No? So because of this, if we think about any possible impact of the USDA news on the stock price of a company, then it must be through two channels. So the first channel is the discount rate, and the second channel is the cash flow. So now again, like I said, because food sector firms practically account for very small share of the S&P 500 list, or like you can generalize that agriculture in general accounts for a small share of the total economy, the global economy, and therefore there's a little reason to believe that food supply shock could, affect the stock price via the discount rate channel, and therefore the remaining channel is the stream of expected cash flow, and this is what we focus on. So when we talk about this company, again, could broadly separate them into two groups: the group of companies that make agriculture production factors such as like machinery, tech, fertilizer, and so. And then for these companies, the demand for the product of this company can be affected if the USDA reports has some implication on their revenue, their future revenue. For example, the direct implications from planted acreage, so either directly via such reports like the prospective planting or the acreage report, or it could also be via the forecast, the projected figure in the WASDE, the World Agriculture Supply and Demand Estimate. And if the news are sufficient to bring a change in the market expectation of future acreage allocated to the production, that may bring in turns a change in the demand for the product of this company. That is one channel. However, the other channel, which may or may not work in the same direction, is the financial constraint or like the purchasing power of the farmer themselves. And this is somehow related to the price of agriculture commodity. So for example, if the news implied that commodity price increases and thereby the prospective income of the farmer increase, they have more purchasing power in the future, in the close future for the next season or something, then it may imply that they're less constrained in buying or investing in machinery or apply more fertilizer, and the other way works in the other direction. However, this is a little bit depends on the nature of the report and what kind of information implied in the report and what kind of implication, the time dimension of it. For example, if it's in the prospective planting in the acreage, then a bullish surprise in our language means that a surprise in the planted areas below what was expected, then it may imply a negative shock to the stock price of this company, because implied lower revenue. And if it's bearing surprise, that meaning more crops planted and the demand for fertilizer, for example, will increase. But the other, so therefore, the total effect on the stock price may not be so obvious when you sum them up, except for the grain stock report. And the second group of the company that we're looking at, those who use food or agriculture product as the input. So those include biofuel producers, beverage transformation companies like making food, processed food, or grocery restaurant. These to us a little bit like more consistent in what the indication of the surprise that report might bring. So in general, we expect that when the surprise imply more expensive food or input cost, then it will imply a negative change in the stock price of the company and the other way around. So bottom line, we think the food sector from future cash flow should in theory be impacted by the USDA news. However, the impact should be dependent on the sector as well as the report, the information of the report. And therefore, the answer of our questions is an empirical one, which may or may not be supported by the data that we have. So the question in details include whether the stock market as a whole reacts to the USDA news. So they would talk about the reaction, and again, we talk about the returns, the change in the value of the market index, the volatility and uncertainty. The second question is whether these companies, the stock experience excess returns on USDA days. So what excess return mean, I will come back a bit later. And for that, we use the CAPM model as a benchmark in order to extract this excess return. So the third one, sorry, there's a typo over there. We want to investigate how actually the reaction vary by subsector, by report, and by commodity, as intuition suggested. And let's have a quick look at the data we have. So the sample period is from September 2009 until October 2019, which in total give us more than 2,500 trading days and 151 USDA announcement in 4 main group of USDA report that we're looking at, including the WASDE, the grain stock, the prospective planting, and the acreage. So why 2009? It's because we want to make use of the Bloomberg survey in order to construct the surprise, the new proceed of the USDA announcement, because in the announcement always contains something that the market may have expected already, and then something new. And then we need a proceed for that kind of pre-event expectation in order to drag out, tease out the new component. Otherwise, our estimation may be biased because of that forward-looking behavior of the market. Okay, anyways, so the survey from Bloomberg is only available starting from September 2009, and that's why our sample starts from that time. So for stock market, we have daily data returns of 164 full sector stock company from the CRSP, and we also use interest rate like the T-bill and the S&P 500 returns in order to estimate the excess return using the CAPM model. The food sector companies, I mean, even though here it showed that 160 firms, but actually we started with much higher number than that, like 200 something. And we went back and forth again, a lot of time in order to filter out those companies with maybe low trading volume, like penny stock, with missing value, and so a lot of like the data cleaning part, or like the filtering, the observation of the sample already took a lot of effort actually. But anyhow, at the end of the day, we still have 164 companies, and this company, they don't have trading like formally from the beginning to the end of the sample. So some may appear right before the sample start, but then ends somewhere in the middle, or some only appears later and then ended later also. So this is a very like normal nature of stock exchange. So we have 7 subsectors in the beginning. So we have brand merchandisers like ABCD, like food processors, Coca-Cola was in there, you know, farm machinery and technology, then fertilizer, pesticide manufacturers, biofuel producers. And we also have restaurant, catering, grocery chains, and food distributors. So anything that may potentially related to agriculture production. And at the end, we have 164 firms. So we formed some hypotheses. Basically, hypothesis 1, 2, and 6A, 6B is about the market. It basically tells us that the stock market as a whole, we expect that there should not be any significant movement on USDA announcement day versus non-USDA announcement day. And hypothesis 3, 4, and 5 basically summarize what I showed you on the table later, like before, how we expect the stock price change from like the input perspective and output perspective of like those companies. So why do we care so much about stock market as a whole if we just like want to focus on the food sector companies? That is because, you know, like we need an important, like we need a proper benchmark in order to conclude whether there's some abnormal or excess return or something like excessive on USDA announcement day for the food sector company, and therefore the market proceed must be stable and robust enough, because if both moving, then what's the point, right? You can't identify. So let me go back a bit to the excess return. So basically you could think about the stock price as it captures several factors, and there's the risk that a company may face, including, you know, systematic and non-systematic risk. So the non-systematic risk is what you can use from the error term of estimating this equation. So basically on the so your right hand side actually, is the RF is the risk-free returns, which we use the T-bill. And then inside there is the market expected value of the market returns, which is the S&P 500 now. So we extract the excess return, which is the non-systematic component of the returns, out of the total returns of each stock, because we assume that, you know, the systematic component is not any affected by the USDA announcement. So therefore, it's important to extract that component and put it aside first. We estimated like for rolling windows every 90 days or 180 days before each trading day. And then we use the parameter beta there in order to predict, you know, what is the expected systematic return of each company and on each day, and then extract that from the realized return in order to account for the excess return. So at this day, I apologize, I only have some preliminary results. And on this table, I show you all the hypotheses that related to the market as a whole. So basically, it's consistent across hypotheses, and it shows that indeed the market as a whole do not move on either on USDA sorry, like not significant different from the USDA announcement day, no, compared to the non-USDA announcement day. So that's kind of sort of comforting already. And then when we did the t-test to check whether there's any significant difference in the assessed return of only those stock sector company compared to those non-USDA announcement day, you can see the result here. I plot actually the p-value. So therefore, it's kind of like also barely very little significant difference out there. So that's kind of appear as a puzzle, right? Why we expected that, okay, if there's that kind of fundamental relation and that's kind of intuition suggests that there's such impact, then why could we capture anything here? So the thing is that the surprise coming from the report of the USDA, they have a lot of time like bearish. So, you know, implying higher stock or higher acreage than expected, but they also have equally likely the chance that it's implying like bullish. So taking these things all together, and then the effect mostly should be washed out if you assume that the forecast or the expectation of the market is unbiased. So therefore, if we don't look further into commodity, we don't look further into the type of report, we don't look further into the subsector, you know, then you rarely would capture anything. So actually I ran a setup regression and I had some result that I would love to show, but apologies again that we didn't have much time to do that. So that's my fault. But what I can tell, you know, is that actually the result that I got a little bit counter, how to say, like it didn't turn out consistent to what we expected, in the sense that the size and the magnitude of the impact vary a lot across reports and commodities. So different commodities and different reports would have different you know, effect on the assessed return of different companies even. So the next thing we would love to do is, you know, to kind of run more robustness check on that and finalize the regression specification. And we also would like to see what if all the reports pointing to the same direction versus the case where different report or different commodity released on the same day go in, like the surprise go in opposite direction. Yeah, so this is what I have so far for this paper. So welcome your question and also discussion. So thank you.
Sorry, I'm not.
That's fine.
So I know you choose the
yeah, September. Yeah.
So I know like the recession, it ended officially in June
So again, what is ended in June, and what ended on that what sorry, I missed that part. What ended on that day? Well, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we didn't think about it. I mean, we're aware that there's such event. Also, that's part of the reason why we didn't go further into the 2020, because we wanted to avoid the COVID for such reason. But yeah, we didn't think much, or at least we didn't perform any check whether different, you know, for 2009 or the years after. But that's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
So I think it's still that I only work on
Mhm.
So I'm not sure how you work. For example,
Yeah, that's a good point. So far we have what we have. Also, that's why I think in the text we explained that we wanted to use fixed effect estimation in order to account for those, like, you know, time invariant characteristic related to the firm. But apart from that, we also have, I think at the moment we control for the announcement day, like earning announcement day of the firm, because maybe asset return can be generated by the surprise in the earning announcement of the firm and not, you know, by the sector news from the USDA. So that's one thing. Another thing is the market value of the firm. So I think we do rolling average for the previous 6 months or something up to that month of like the report. So these things we have, because we expected that, you know, like large firm may react different from small firm. So these are the things that usually we have. What else do you have in mind? Like if you want to control for firm first. Yeah.
I'm not so sure, but I noticed that you have 4 results that you have to report. So and you add up into your regression, all of them. So I'm not sure if they are correlated with each other or they have some different percentage.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, I couldn't show here because I was afraid that it takes too much time. But the report, the content of the report is not that related. For example, you have average report, and then it will basically tell you how much the farmer is planting this year, right? But the wasting report, for example, you will say that, okay, what is the stock level, the inventory level of the US by the end of the marketing year, which may not be this year, but like rolling up to the next calendar year or something already. So we talk about it back and forth a lot, because in particular, I also use it for my previous paper. And then I also check the correlation of these variables, you know, like just simply plotted like matrix of correlation, and across, for example, soybean and corn, there may be some negative correlation in the accuracy because they're competing now. But across different type of reports, it's really not a big concern in our data. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you. Scott?
What is the time horizon of the observation?
So you mean open to close or
Daily or
daily? Daily. I mean, actually in the beginning, because we thought, okay, simple, we just picked the announcement day and take daily return of day that day and make a regression of 151 observations. But then thinking back and forth again, okay, that may not be a smart way to, you know, to capture or to answer the question whether there's impact or not on the announcement day versus not. So at the end, we included also non-USDA announcement trading days in there. So we have actually like a daily, how to say, data set of which on non-USDA announcement day, all the surprise variable will be set to 0. You have no announcement, then you have no surprise.
I would expect from him that the stock price impact would be pretty small.
Yeah.
You wouldn't expect it just in general, very good. So whatever's there, it's going to be hard to make that. And so one of the thought about using transaction level data instead. And related to that, the USDA announcement time for release changed from percent.
So in 2012, you would say?
Yes. Yes. So it just seems like, and we know, recent studies that show that the impact of the USDA reports is certainly, well, typically no longer the 30 minutes, often 5 to 10 minutes. And it would be interesting to look at, really closely aligned tick data in the stock market and the commodity markets. And we could also then look at, well, maybe it takes a little while for that information to go over to the stock market and you start data. So just my comment might be that I think you're possibly missing a lot of the really interesting potential market dynamics. At a time horizon, even out to a day.
Yeah.
For I think you can't pick it up. Something to think about.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think that I know that there is available in our shop, and the stock market is a common database.
Yeah. I would have to come back to my coworker who's responsible for data, but yeah, I would take it. Thank you very much. Any other thing, Max?
How did you compound that during your estimation of health?
What exactly you mean?
Like, for instance, when you have 150 days before your event date, like before the week, you will probably also have other reports released during that time period of your estimation. That support your estimation. If you somehow use that, because that will also inflate the standard error of the estimate, and therefore also affect the estimate of the significance of the abnormal difference.
Yeah, that's a good point. So far, that's true story that we may have more than one report per day, the USDA report. For example, the Grand Stock report in June will be released simultaneously with the average, right? Therefore, we have like these two report surprise, or for if you split also bearish and bullish surprise, there are 4 variables separately. So on those days without this report, then the surprise set to 0. Whereas like I answer Faith's question about what do you do when, what was your question about the correlation of the report? So it's kind of like low correlation in a way. So you could do that without worrying so much about multi-correlation in there. That is one part of this confounding with USDA report. The other part is like I said, it may be that, if on the same day there's earning announcement of firms coming out, then it may be a big problem because, intuitively you could assume that the earning announcement of specific firm may have larger impact on that rather than the USDA announcement. And I looked at the data, we don't have that many days of like overlapping between earning announcement day and USDA announcement day across a sample. So the highest number I remember was like 7% for a firm, like that's 7% of the time that happened. However, in this regression, I also control for that by adding a dummy. So whether that day is an earning announcement day or not, there's a dummy to control for that. Yeah. And the next level, you may question about macro macroeconomic announcement. So yeah, that's true that we don't account for that within our regression. However, we accounted for that by estimating the CAPM model, which basically capture and extracted out all the things that related to systematic movement of the market as a whole, like through with the macro affected. Yeah. That's yeah.
There's a fine slice of data that, why not? Don't worry about surprises. Just start with the simplest, which is, you have a 30-minute time slice in commodity markets. Price goes up. What happens in the stock prices?
In this 30
without
minutes.
using surprises.
Yeah.
I wonder if the noise in using the surprises could also contribute to the difficulty of protecting the relationship. So just, if the report is bullish, it's bullish because the price went up for 30 minutes. And, that should be exogenous in the stock market.
That's true.
The stock market price in that same 30-minute time slice. And you don't have to cap it. I think there's I think there's a simpler, much more powerful way to do this.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, CAPM is still useful because I may run into a reviewer asking the same question that Max asked. What if that happens in 30 minutes? Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I will talk. Pass your comment back to my colleague. Thank you very much. Any other questions now?
So you actually estimate until the event date,
What is
like your CAPM, or do
no,
you,
like
like
that?
what
That's
information
again.
do you use to estimate the parity of the event?
So we use like, okay, if today is the Monday, right? Like, okay, I use the 90 days until 10 days before today.
Did you also try like different estimation windows? Because I can imagine, I mean, I don't have to be USDA in order to forecast that, like, if we had a rainy summer or rainy autumn or whatever, we will have effects on yield and pricing. So this will also affect the problems. There might be information usage, like sort of, because markets are that you basically like that estimation window end earlier, and then for instance, aggregate your abnormal returns over a certain window before the event date, for the announcement date. Did you try that? Or maybe you feel that you might try that?
That's a good point. I mean, I have not tried that, but basically because we assume that, I mean, the window, the length of the window we tried, like, 90 days, 180 days, but I have not changed the gap. That's true. And for like the efficient part of the market, that's why I constructed, like I use the surprise instead of what the information of the report presents. So like I subtracted already the expectation of the market, which organized by Bloomberg surveys, but they usually
Mike Doherty here.
Hey, Mike, this is Dennis Hartlove again with
Yep.
Wednesday.
Hey, Dennis.
All right, so I tried to get a hold of Joe. I couldn't get a hold of Joe, but I went back. You actually sent me an email too. It sounds like you got the check.
So I think we
but
could
you need to know.
post the session here. Thank you very
like,
much for your
how many-
attention.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry about the background.
Either as presenter or.
There, totally. Yeah, it's simple. Because it's all we need from the form. We got the check. So we wanted to know whether.
Oh, I have to stop. Everyone, please leave the room
Their, I didn't think this
before
was-
you hear something.
Split their sponsorship between our two